A racist neighbor unjustly called the police to arrest a black man, suspecting him of being a criminal without any evidence, completely unaware that the man was the newly appointed police chief. When the truth was revealed, the neighbor was left speechless in shock. This story not only exposes the dangers of prejudice and racism, but also underscores the importance of respect and equality in society. But before we dive into this astonishing story, let us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on more inspiring tales. The peaceful morning in a quiet neighborhood was shattered by an unfamiliar noise. Wood clanking, voices talking, and footsteps echoing from the house next door. Ethan, a middle-aged white man with a sturdy build and perpetually scowling eyes, woke up with a start. Frowning, he sat up from the worn armchair by the window. Ethan was not the kind of person who took kindly to disturbances, especially not early in the morning. Pulling the curtains back sharply, his gaze locked onto the house next door, a house that had been vacant for months but now had new occupants moving in. The scene before him made Ethan freeze for a moment. A tall, muscular black man with glistening dark skin was standing on the porch, holding a few boxes. That man, Jordan, looked strong and composed. But what caught Ethan's attention most were the two uniformed police officers emerging from the house. Narrowing his eyes, suspicion flared up within Ethan. "Cops? This early in the morning? That guy must be trouble," he muttered, his expression filled with disdain. The two officers exchanged a few words with Jordan, shook his hand amicably, and then left, leaving the area quiet once again. But that quiet did nothing to quell the rising anger within Ethan. A black guy moving into this neighborhood with the cops showing up? He must have just gotten out of jail. Ethan's prejudiced thoughts ran rampant. Instead of seeking answers, he acted immediately. Throwing open his window, Ethan shouted, his voice filled with anger and bigotry, "Hey, you black scum! What are the cops doing at your house so early? Don't bring your trash into this neighborhood to ruin it." Jordan, who was arranging boxes on the porch, paused briefly. He looked up, his sharp gaze cutting toward Ethan. But instead of retaliating, Jordan silently resumed his work, refusing to be provoked. Jordan's silence only fueled Ethan's rage further. His eyes drifted to a large box placed near the boundary between their homes, and his irritation boiled over. "What's this now? More black trash lying on my land?" Ethan yelled. Without waiting another moment, he stormed out of his house and headed straight for the box. With a powerful kick, Ethan sent the box tumbling down the pathway, hitting the curb with a loud thud. He stood there, watching it roll away with a smug expression, then turned and shouted, "Get this garbage off my property now, you hear?" Jordan calmly put down the box he was holding and stepped forward to pick up the one Ethan had kicked. His voice was deep, steady, and resolute. "Why did you damage my property? This belongs to me and isn't bothering anyone." Ethan sneered, taking another step forward, his tone turning colder. "If your trash is on my land, I can do whatever I want with it. You should thank me for not smashing it to pieces." Jordan froze momentarily, his large hands clenching into fists. For a brief moment, his body seemed to battle between restraint and retaliation. But then he sighed, closed his eyes, and appeared to calm himself. Without saying another word, Jordan picked up the box and walked back toward his house. His steps were slow, and his face betrayed no emotion. Ethan stood there, watching Jordan's retreating figure with a smug expression. Muttering to himself, his voice dripping with self-satisfaction, "That's right. You better be scared. Don't make me call the cops on you again. Got it?" But Ethan didn't realize that Jordan's silence wasn't born of fear. Beneath that calm demeanor was a storm being carefully prepared. A storm Ethan would never see coming. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window panes, illuminating the peaceful neighborhood. Jordan sat in his small kitchen, reflecting on the events of the previous day. He didn't want the situation to escalate, and with his characteristic patience, Jordan decided to try a different approach. He baked a batch of cookies, warm, golden, and fragrant, carefully arranged on a porcelain plate. It was his way of extending goodwill, even though he knew his hostile neighbor might not easily accept it. After finishing, Jordan adjusted his shirt, picked up the plate of cookies, and stepped outside. Standing in front of Ethan's door, he took a deep breath to steady himself before knocking 3 times, each knock firm and deliberate. Inside, Ethan sat in his worn armchair, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. The knocking made him frown, muttering under his breath, "Who's bothering me this early? Must be that guy." Ethan got up and stomped to the door, his irritation clear. He yanked the door open, and just as he suspected, Jordan was standing there, holding a neatly wrapped plate of cookies. "Good morning, Mr. Ethan," Jordan said in a deep, polite voice. "I'm Jordan, your new neighbor. I wanted to bring you some homemade cookies as a gesture of goodwill. I hope we can get to know each other." Ethan's eyes darkened, his disdain unconcealed. He looked Jordan up and down, then glanced at the plate of cookies as if it were some kind of joke. After a tense few seconds, Ethan let out a mocking laugh. "Get to know you? I don't think so. I don't want anything to do with someone like you." Jordan remained calm, though a flicker of disappointment crossed his eyes. "I just wanted to extend a friendly gesture, hoping we could live harmoniously in this neighborhood," he replied, his tone steady and sincere. Ethan cut him off, his voice growing harsher. "Harmoniously? With you? I think you're in the wrong place." With that, Ethan snatched the plate of cookies from Jordan's hands roughly. Under Jordan's surprised gaze, Ethan flung the plate at him. The cookies shattered, crumbs scattering across the porch as the porcelain plate hit the ground with a chilling crash. Jordan stood motionless, his eyes calm as they met Ethan's. Slowly, he raised a hand to wipe the crumbs off his face. Without a word, Jordan crouched down and began picking up the shattered pieces of the plate, his hands trembling slightly but his expression unyielding. "Listen here, I don't need this garbage," Ethan said, his voice filled with contempt. "You'd better not bother me again. Got it?" Jordan took a deep breath as if to steady the storm brewing within him. He gave Ethan one final look, his gaze unwavering, before turning and walking back to his house. His slow steps across the porch seemed to silence the air. Ethan stood there, arms crossed, a triumphant smirk plastered on his face. Muttering to himself, he said, "That's right, back down in fear, know your place." But Ethan was wrong. In Jordan's eyes as he turned away, there wasn't a trace of fear. Instead, there burned a quiet determination. Jordan wasn't someone who would easily accept injustice. His silence wasn't surrender. It was careful preparation for something much greater to come. Jordan stepped into his house, quietly closing the door behind him. He placed his jacket, stained with leftover food, on the table and gazed thoughtfully out the window. Across the street, Ethan was still standing in front of his lawn, arms crossed, with an arrogant smirk plastered on his face. Jordan sighed softly, fully aware that every move he made would be scrutinized by his prejudiced neighbor. Ethan, on the other hand, had no intention of stopping. He believed he was in control, and that his actions not only asserted his authority, but also preserved the purity of the neighborhood in the face of his new neighbor's presence. That evening, Ethan rummaged through his storage room and finally pulled out a small security camera. He had purchased it months ago to monitor his backyard, but now thought it could serve a better purpose: spying on Jordan. Under the dim porch light, Ethan stealthily stepped into his yard. After glancing around to make sure no one was watching, he quickly mounted the camera on a large tree branch near the boundary between the two houses. The tree was tall and dense enough to conceal the camera from prying eyes. Ethan adjusted it carefully, angling the lens to focus directly on Jordan's porch and front door. Back in his house, Ethan connected the camera to his computer. The live feed appeared on his screen, capturing every detail: Jordan's porch, the wooden chair he often sat on, and the neatly arranged potted plants nearby. Ethan smiled with satisfaction, feeling as though he had just executed a master plan. "Now, I'll know exactly what you're up to, every minute of every day," Ethan muttered smugly to himself. The next morning, Ethan spotted Jordan near his trash bin. It seemed as though Jordan was searching for something in the garbage bag. Ethan's anger flared instantly. He flung his door open and stormed toward Jordan, a large trash bag in hand. "Hey, what the hell are you doing here?" Ethan shouted, his voice dripping with rage. "Stealing my trash, are you? You piece of garbage!" Jordan turned, momentarily surprised, but he quickly regained his composure. He calmly explained, "I'm not stealing anything. I noticed one of my trash bags had been misplaced here, so I was trying to retrieve it." Ethan didn't let him finish. With a swift and violent motion, he hurled the trash bag in his hand straight at Jordan. The bag struck Jordan's chest, spilling leftover coffee and food scraps all over him. "Take it. Trash belongs with trash," Ethan yelled, his eyes filled with contempt. Jordan stood still, his gaze unshaken. Slowly, he removed the soiled shirt, carefully folded it, and held it in his hand. His voice was low, but carried significant weight. "Thank you for your hospitality. I'll remember this." Jordan turned and walked back to his house without another word. But from a distance, another neighbor, Anna, had witnessed the entire incident. Anna, a kind-hearted, middle-aged woman who had lived in the neighborhood for over a decade, typically ignored minor disputes among neighbors. However, Ethan's behavior had increasingly troubled her. From her window, she had seen Ethan throw the trash bag at Jordan, and upon closer observation, she noticed something unusual: a shiny object on the tree near Ethan's house. Anna grabbed her small pair of binoculars, which she often used to watch birds, and took a closer look. It was a camera, pointed toward Jordan's house. Ethan installed a camera to spy on his neighbor? "This doesn't seem right," Anna muttered, her suspicion growing. She quickly took out her phone, snapping pictures of the camera and Ethan throwing the trash at Jordan. Putting her phone down, Anna looked toward Jordan's house, where dim light spilled out through the windows. "I can't stay silent about this," she thought. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to his house and continued monitoring the camera feed, smugly believing he was in control. But he had no idea that the attention of his neighbors, especially Anna, was beginning to turn toward him, and his excessive actions were setting the stage for a storm he couldn't foresee. Jordan stepped inside, removing his trash-stained shirt and carefully hanging it over a chair. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by a thoughtful intensity. Ethan's actions had crossed the line of mere rudeness. Jordan knew exactly what he needed to do next, but he had to proceed discreetly. That afternoon, Jordan stepped out into his yard, a small pair of binoculars in hand. Pretending to observe the distant trees, he was, in fact, carefully watching Ethan's house. He noticed Ethan frequently glancing out the window, his expression filled with suspicion. This only confirmed what Jordan already suspected. Ethan was hiding something, and his aggressive behavior wasn't just about racial prejudice. Inside his house, Ethan noticed Jordan through the window. Scowling, he stared at Jordan's binoculars. "What's he up to now?" Ethan muttered, his anger bubbling to the surface. Unable to contain himself, Ethan burst out of his house, slamming the door behind him. He marched toward Jordan, his angry shouts echoing through the neighborhood. "What the hell are you doing, you bastard? Spying on me? I'm warning you, don't test my patience." Jordan heard Ethan's yelling but remained unfazed. He slowly lowered his binoculars and turned to face Ethan. His sharp gaze, calm and resolute, seemed to pierce through Ethan's boiling rage. That look made Ethan falter for a moment. He couldn't understand how Jordan, whom he considered weak, could meet his gaze without fear. It wasn't the look of a man intimidated. It was the look of someone in control. "Who the hell do you think you are, looking at me like that?" Ethan bellowed, trying to mask his confusion with harsh words. "Don't think you can outsmart me. I'll make you regret ever moving here." Jordan remained silent, refusing to rise to the bait. Instead, he allowed a faint smirk to curl his lips, as if that was all the response Ethan deserved. After a moment of tense silence, Jordan turned and walked back into his house without saying another word. Ethan stood frozen, too angry to speak. His mind raced with negative thoughts, but he failed to realize that his lack of control was exactly what Jordan had been counting on. Inside his house, Jordan sprang into action. He picked up his phone and opened a specialized app used by his narcotics task force. Jordan wasn't just a new neighbor. He was an experienced undercover agent, and Ethan's house was no random target. Jordan uploaded videos he had recorded, Ethan throwing trash at him, making racist remarks, and the footage of the camera Ethan had secretly installed to spy on his house. He sent everything to his team with a concise message. "The subject is displaying suspicious behavior. Continue surveillance. I'll gather more evidence." But he didn't stop there. Jordan opened his laptop and began digging deeper into Ethan's background. What he uncovered only strengthened his suspicion that Ethan was hiding something illicit. Across the street, Ethan's obsession continued to grow. Back inside, he checked the live feed from his hidden camera. Seeing Jordan standing in his yard with binoculars made Ethan even angrier. "You think you can spy on me? I'll show you who's in charge," Ethan growled, slamming his hand down on the table. Instead of thinking clearly, Ethan pushed things even further. Little did he know that his actions were being captured from multiple angles and would soon serve as evidence against him. Meanwhile, Anna, the observant neighbor, kept watching from afar. She missed none of Ethan's behavior. She had already photographed the hidden camera and documented Ethan's confrontations with Jordan. Although she didn't know the whole story, what she had seen was enough to make her suspicious of Ethan's erratic conduct. Jordan glanced out of his window, noticing Anna standing in the distance. He realized she had taken note of what was happening, and this further assured him that the truth would eventually come to light. Inside his house, Jordan smiled faintly. He placed the binoculars on his desk, his eyes gleaming with determination. "This is just the beginning," he thought as his carefully laid plans began to take shape. Jordan stepped into his house after the morning confrontation, gently closing the door behind him. Outwardly, he maintained his usual calm demeanor, but inside, he knew Ethan was becoming more dangerous than ever. Jordan had dealt with people like Ethan before, those obsessed with power and control, masking their fear with aggressive and violent behavior. He understood that Ethan wouldn't stop at mere threats. Across the street, Ethan sat in his living room, his eyes fixed on the computer screen displaying the live feed from the hidden security camera he had set up to monitor Jordan's house. The footage showed nothing unusual, but the image of Jordan using binoculars the previous afternoon lingered in Ethan's mind. You think you can spy on me? Ethan muttered, his voice brimming with anger. He clenched his fists and slammed the table. I'll show you who's really in control here. That afternoon, Ethan took action. He went into his storage room, opened a cabinet, and pulled out an old but functional shotgun. Ethan carefully wiped the gun, checked the ammunition, and stood there for a few moments, his eyes gleaming with determination. He was convinced that intimidating Jordan would put an end to the trouble his new neighbor had caused. Without hesitation, Ethan stepped out of his house, slamming the door behind him. His heavy footsteps echoed along the pathway, catching the attention of Anna, the neighbor who lived a few houses away. From her window, Anna saw Ethan walking with a shotgun in hand. She frowned, a deep sense of unease washing over her. Inside his house, Jordan was unaware of Ethan's approach. A loud, forceful knock rattled the door. Jordan stood up and made his way to the door, immediately sensing that something was off about the sound. He opened the door slightly, and in an instant, Ethan barged in, pressing the shotgun barrel against Jordan's forehead. "You bastard! What do you think you're doing? Spying on me?" Ethan roared, his voice filled with rage and triumph. "If I catch you looking toward my house again, I swear I'll shoot you right here and now." Jordan remained still, his eyes wide, his face a mask of feigned fear. He raised his hands, his voice trembling as if in genuine panic. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you. I won't do it again. Please, don't shoot." Ethan stared directly into Jordan's eyes, relishing the surge of power coursing through him. He smirked disdainfully, lowering the gun slightly but maintaining a threatening stance. "Good. You'd better behave. I'm not joking. Don't make me repeat myself." From her window, Anna witnessed the entire scene. She pulled out her phone, activated the video recording function, and captured Ethan standing at Jordan's door with the shotgun. A chill ran down her spine at Ethan's aggressive behavior and threatening words, but she knew she couldn't remain silent. "This has gone too far," Anna muttered, her voice resolute. "This isn't just a neighborly dispute anymore. I need solid evidence." Jordan closed the door after Ethan left. The fearful expression on his face disappeared instantly, replaced by a calm and cold determination. He knew Ethan was falling into the trap he had set. Jordan went to his office, opened his security app, and sent an urgent message to his team. "The suspect has made a direct armed threat. Evidence is being collected, requesting increased surveillance and support." He sat down, opened his laptop, and reviewed footage from his security camera, which had also captured Ethan's actions from a distance. Jordan smiled faintly, confident that he now had enough grounds to move his plan to the next phase. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to his house, still exhilarated from his earlier actions. He placed the shotgun on the table, a smug sense of satisfaction washing over him. "There, let's see if you dare step out of line now," Ethan muttered, convinced he had taught Jordan a lesson. However, Ethan had no idea that Anna had recorded the entire incident on her phone, or that the footage was already being analyzed by Jordan's narcotics task force. Jordan, seated in his office, tapped his fingers lightly on the desk, his eyes distant but focused. He knew Ethan had crossed a line, and the next time law enforcement intervened, the outcome would be definitive. But before that moment arrived, he still had a few more steps to take. At her house, Anna replayed the video on her phone, thinking, "If this gets any worse, I'll have to report it. He's too dangerous." As night fell, a blanket of quiet enveloped the neighborhood, yet beneath the surface of that calm, a storm was brewing, waiting for the right moment to erupt. Ethan, clutching his shotgun and basking in his arrogance, had no idea that his actions were leading him closer to his downfall. The quiet night shrouded the neighborhood, with only the faint glow of streetlights reflecting on the pavement. Jordan stared intently at his phone screen, reviewing the evidence he had collected. Ethan's actions were becoming increasingly reckless, and the surveillance footage only reinforced Jordan's suspicion that Ethan was hiding something significant. Jordan had no time to waste. He tucked the phone into his pocket, donned black gloves, and threw on a dark coat. His equipment was ready: a compact camera, an earpiece connected to his team, and a quick sketch of Ethan's house layout that he had drawn earlier. He stepped outside, his gaze steely, his steps swift but silent. "Tonight, I need answers," Jordan whispered into the earpiece, alerting his team. Ethan's house loomed in the darkness, cold and foreboding. Jordan approached from the back, where he had noticed a small kitchen door that Ethan often left unlocked. As expected, the door wasn't locked. Jordan gently pushed it open and slipped inside, moving with utmost caution. Inside, the house was eerily still. The dim light from a bedside lamp in the living room illuminated a cluttered space: a few empty bottles of liquor, a jacket thrown carelessly over the couch, and, on the table, the shotgun Ethan had used to threaten him. Jordan glanced around, taking in Ethan's carelessness and volatile nature. Jordan moved quickly down the hallway, heading toward the rooms at the back. He spotted a small door at the end of the hall that appeared to lead to a basement. A faint chemical odor wafted through the air, confirming to Jordan that he was closing in on what he was looking for. When he opened the basement door, the sight before him made him pause for a moment. Under the glow of overhead lights, the basement was far from a typical storage space. It resembled a small lab with neatly arranged production equipment. Rows of plastic bags filled with white powder lined the shelves. Beside them were chemical containers, pressing machines, and even a small corner with marijuana plants thriving under LED grow lights. Jordan quickly pulled out his phone and began filming. He moved carefully, capturing every detail of the basement. "This is exactly what we need," he whispered into his earpiece, informing his team. His eyes scanned the room, making sure not to miss anything. On a large table in the center of the room, he spotted a notebook filled with scrawled handwriting that appeared to be a transaction log. Jordan meticulously recorded each page, ensuring he left no trace behind. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the staircase above. Jordan looked up, sensing the danger approaching. He swiftly turned off his flashlight and retreated into a shadowy corner, continuing to record. The beam of another flashlight slowly illuminated the basement, and Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs, holding the flashlight and looking suspicious. "What's this? Who's down there?" Ethan growled, his voice full of anger. Jordan remained calm, staying perfectly still in the shadows, but he knew he couldn't escape if Ethan descended further. As expected, Ethan began making his way down, the flashlight beam sweeping closer to the corner where Jordan was hidden. "You bastard! You dare break into my house?" Ethan shouted when his flashlight revealed Jordan, his eyes blazing with fury. Ethan rushed toward him, raising the flashlight as if to strike. Before Ethan could act, Jordan raised his phone high, the screen's glow illuminating Ethan's face. "I've recorded everything," Jordan said, his voice steady and firm. "This basement, the equipment, the drugs, and you. If you touch me, it will all be sent out instantly." Ethan froze, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. But in an instant, his expression shifted to hatred. "You think I'm scared? I'll take care of you right here. Who's gonna know you were here?" Jordan remained composed, his gaze unwavering. "You think no one knows? My team is watching everything. One signal from this phone, and they'll be here immediately." Ethan stood still, his body tense. Jordan could see the internal struggle playing out in Ethan's mind as he searched for a way out of the situation. But Ethan's arrogance wouldn't let him back down. Jordan slowly retreated, keeping the phone raised and his eyes locked on Ethan. "Fine," Ethan snarled, his voice laced with malice. "But mark my words, you'll pay for this." Jordan didn't respond. He continued back toward the stairs, filming every corner of the basement and Ethan's enraged face. When Jordan reached the top of the stairs and stepped outside, he turned to look back one final time, his gaze a silent warning. Returning to his house, Jordan let out a deep breath, knowing this was only the beginning. He sat at his desk and reconnected with his team through the earpiece. "I've gathered sufficient evidence. We need to act quickly before he has a chance to cover his tracks," he said, his voice resolute. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his basement, his eyes bloodshot with anger and unease. He knew his secret had been uncovered, and now he had no choice but to face the consequences. However, in his mind, Ethan was already devising a plan for revenge. As the night blanketed the neighborhood in silence, the calm exterior was nothing more than a facade. A larger confrontation was looming, and both Jordan and Ethan were acutely aware that everything had escalated beyond the point of no return. Jordan stepped into his house after returning from Ethan's secret basement. He knew that what he had just witnessed was not only compelling evidence but also confirmation that Ethan wouldn't stop his reckless behavior. Jordan quickly uploaded all the videos and images he had collected into his team's secure system. Meanwhile, Ethan, back in his own home, was entirely consumed by anger. He couldn't sit still, his mind racing with thoughts about how much Jordan had uncovered. "You think you can outsmart me?" Ethan muttered, gripping his shotgun tightly. Ethan decided to act immediately. Grabbing the gun, he checked the ammunition, then stormed out of his house with determined footsteps. A loud knock echoed through Jordan's home, rattling the door on its hinges. Jordan, reviewing his documents and videos, froze. He could feel the imminent danger. As he approached the door, the knocking grew louder and more violent, as though the person on the other side was ready to break it down. Jordan took a deep breath, quickly adjusting the bulletproof vest hidden beneath his shirt. He cracked the door open, and immediately, Ethan barged in, shoving the shotgun barrel directly into Jordan's chest. "It's time for you to pay," Ethan growled, his finger tightening on the trigger. Before Jordan could react, a deafening gunshot shattered the quiet night of the neighborhood. Jordan fell to the floor, motionless. The bullet had struck him square in the chest, but Ethan had no idea that Jordan was wearing a bulletproof vest. Jordan lay still, his eyes closed, feigning death, while Ethan stood over him, a triumphant smirk on his face. "You thought you could beat me? Not a chance," Ethan muttered, crouching to inspect if Jordan was still alive. Seeing no movement, he sneered in satisfaction. Ethan turned and entered Jordan's house. He needed to ensure no evidence could implicate him. He ransacked every drawer and cupboard, searching for anything that could tie him to a crime. But Ethan didn't realize that Jordan was only pretending. Lying on the floor, Jordan slowly opened his eyes. His hands moved cautiously to activate the phone in his pocket. The device, connected to his team, sent out an emergency signal, alerting them to the immediate threat. In such a dangerous situation, what would you do if you were Jordan? Would you remain calm and maintain control, or retreat to ensure your safety? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In the team's earpieces, the alert sounded, "Emergency at the target location. Deploying forces immediately." Anna, the neighbor, also witnessed the entire incident. From her window, Anna saw Ethan enter Jordan's house armed with a shotgun. Without hesitation, she called the police, her voice tense with urgency. "We need immediate assistance. A man with a weapon just shot my neighbor. I have evidence. Please come right away." Simultaneously, Anna continued recording Ethan's actions from a distance, ensuring she captured enough evidence. Inside the house, Ethan continued searching but found nothing. He turned back, gun still in hand, and looked toward Jordan. "Guess I'll just finish you off now," he muttered, walking slowly toward Jordan, who remained lying on the floor. As Ethan leaned down, Jordan's eyes snapped open. "You shouldn't have done that," Jordan said in a low, firm voice. Before Ethan could react, the sound of police sirens tore through the night. Red and blue lights from police cars lit up the entire neighborhood. Ethan froze, his gun slipping from his hand as he realized he was surrounded. The front door burst open, and officers in black uniforms stormed in, their guns trained on him. "Drop the weapon! Don't move!" one officer shouted. Ethan raised his hands, his face a mix of panic and fury, as he was cuffed and escorted out of the house. He struggled, but to no avail. Jordan sat up, removing his jacket to reveal the bulletproof vest with the bullet lodged in it. An officer approached, helping him to his feet. "You okay, Jordan?" Jordan nodded, exhaling deeply. "I'm fine. Thanks for getting here in time." Jordan removed his outer jacket, revealing the bulletproof vest with a visible bullet mark on his chest. He carefully adjusted his clothes, his cold, steely gaze fixed on Ethan, who was being restrained by the officers. Ethan continued to struggle futilely, his eyes wild with confusion and rage. "Let me go! You've got no right! I didn't do anything wrong!" he shouted. Jordan walked toward Ethan slowly, each step deliberate as though pressing Ethan deeper into his dread. When he stood face to face with him, just a few feet apart, Jordan spoke, his voice low and commanding. "You're wrong, Ethan. We have all the evidence we need. And now, let me introduce myself. I'm not just your neighbor. I'm the captain of the Narcotics Task Force." Jordan's words hit Ethan like a thunderbolt. He froze, his eyes widening in disbelief as he stared at Jordan. "No, no way. You're lying," Ethan stammered, desperately trying to deny reality. Jordan smirked, continuing calmly. "We've been watching you for months, Ethan. Every transaction, every illegal activity. It's all been documented. Tonight, your basement was searched, and everything you've been hiding has now become evidence against you." Ethan whipped around, looking toward the officers combing through his house. The smug look on his face evaporated, replaced by genuine fear. Inside Ethan's house, the police were conducting a thorough search. The basement, where Jordan had uncovered Ethan's secret, was now flooded with light from powerful flashlights. Officers meticulously examined every nook and cranny, recording everything. "What do we have here?" an officer called out, lifting a large plastic bag filled with white powder. "Drugs and plenty of manufacturing equipment. He's been running a full-blown lab." Another officer pulled a long list from a drawer, detailing transactions, amounts, and even the names of Ethan's associates. "We've got a full ledger of his deals. This is airtight evidence." Jordan entered the basement, scanning the chaotic yet incriminating scene. He took the notebook handed to him by one of the officers, flipping through the pages. The meticulous records of names, numbers, and notes underscored the operation's scope. "Ethan isn't just a small-time dealer," Jordan said, his voice steady but resolute. "He's been running a network. And now, it's over." Outside, Ethan watched helplessly as officers carried bag after bag of evidence from his basement. Bags of drugs, chemicals, and manufacturing tools were carefully cataloged and loaded into police vehicles. The sight drove Ethan further into despair. "You set me up!" Ethan screamed, his bloodshot eyes boring into Jordan. "You played me. I won't let this slide." Jordan's expression remained unflinching as he replied coldly, "No one set you up, Ethan. You did this to yourself. You thought your arrogance would protect you, but it only exposed every mistake you made." Ethan thrashed harder, but the officers held him firmly. One officer stepped forward, cuffing Ethan's hands securely before pushing him toward the waiting patrol car. "We'll make sure you don't get another chance to harm anyone," the officer said. Anna, the neighbor who had witnessed everything, approached Jordan. "You're a cop?" she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and admiration. Jordan nodded, offering a slight smile. "I'm the captain of the Narcotics Task Force. But without your vigilance and help, this could have gone very differently. Thank you, Anna." Anna smiled back, her eyes reflecting gratitude. "It's what I had to do. That man was dangerous. I'm just glad it's all out in the open now." Jordan turned to his team, who were still working diligently to secure evidence. He sighed in relief, knowing that every effort, from infiltration to confrontation, had paid off in the end. Ethan was escorted to the police car, his hands tightly cuffed behind his back. His head hung low, but his eyes still glimmered with hatred and anger. He struggled against the officer's firm grip, but he couldn't break free. "You can't do this to me! I'll sue! I'm innocent!" Ethan shouted, his voice echoing into the night air, but no one responded. Jordan stood nearby, calmly observing. He adjusted his jacket, his cold, steady gaze fixed on Ethan. This was the outcome Jordan had anticipated all along, the downfall of an arrogant man who had believed himself untouchable. Sensing Jordan's eyes on him, Ethan lifted his head and yelled, "This is all your fault, you bastard! If it weren't for you, everything would have been perfect. I'll get out, and you'll pay for this." Jordan walked slowly toward Ethan, stopping directly in front of him. He stood tall, meeting Ethan's glare with resolute eyes. His voice was low but commanding. "No, Ethan, you're not getting out of this. Every crime you've committed has been recorded. Your drug lab, your transactions, and your threats of violence. All of it will work against you in court. Justice has been waiting for you for a long time, and tonight you'll finally face it." Ethan froze, momentarily speechless. He struggled again, but it was futile. Jordan's words hit him like a final verdict, snuffing out any lingering hope of escape. Meanwhile, the police continued bringing evidence out from Ethan's basement. Large plastic bags filled with drugs, chemical containers, manufacturing equipment, and transaction records were neatly packed into a specialized police vehicle. One officer held up a ledger containing detailed notes about Ethan's illegal dealings and said to Jordan, "This is the entire transaction log, comprehensive and incriminating. There's no way he can deny this." Jordan nodded, his gaze still locked on Ethan. "Secure every piece of evidence carefully. This is the key to ensuring he faces the full weight of the law." From a distance, Anna and the other neighbors watched the entire scene unfold. Murmurs spread through the small crowd. "I can't believe he was doing such horrible things. It's terrifying to think someone like that was living here." Anna, who had witnessed and recorded much of Ethan's actions, approached Jordan. "I didn't think it was this serious," she said, her voice a mix of astonishment and disgust. Jordan turned to Anna and nodded. "Thanks to your vigilance and courage, we were able to uncover everything. You've done a great job, Anna." "Thank you." Anna smiled, though her expression still carried traces of shock. "I just did what was right. Someone like him doesn't belong anywhere, especially not here." Ethan was led to the police car. As the officers pushed him inside, he turned one last time to glare at Jordan, his eyes burning with hatred. He shouted, "You think this is over? I'll be back. I'll show all of you what the hell is." Jordan didn't respond, standing still as he watched Ethan. He knew that Ethan's words now carried no weight. The officer slammed the car door shut, cutting off Ethan's screams. Another officer turned to Jordan and said, "Thank you. Without you, we couldn't have brought this operation to a successful conclusion." Jordan nodded, his voice calm, but filled with determination. "It's our job. But it wasn't just me. The neighbors here played a crucial role. Justice is a collective effort." As the police car drove away, the neighborhood began to reclaim its quiet. Anna approached Jordan, along with a few other neighbors. An older man spoke up. "We didn't know who you were when you moved here. But now I can say with certainty that, thanks to you, this neighborhood is much safer." Jordan gave a small smile and replied, "It's my responsibility. But without the vigilance of everyone here, especially Anna, things could have gotten much worse. Always stay aware of your surroundings. Justice starts with the smallest actions." Anna watched as Jordan walked back toward his home, her heart filled with admiration and gratitude. She knew that tonight's events weren't just a lesson for her, but for everyone in the neighborhood. The flashing blue and red lights of the police cars faded into the distance. Jordan stood on his porch, gazing toward the horizon. His mind was a mix of relief from the successful operation and thoughts of future challenges. For him, every battle like this was part of the responsibility he had willingly taken on. "One chapter has closed," Jordan murmured, his eyes steady. "But justice never rests." The neighborhood fell into a serene silence, but the story of Ethan and what happened tonight would be remembered for years to come, a testament to the power of truth and the unity of a community. The day of Ethan's trial took place in a grand courthouse at the city center. The atmosphere inside the courtroom was heavy with tension as people gathered to witness the downfall of a man who had terrorized a once peaceful neighborhood. Ethan entered the courtroom in an orange prison jumpsuit, his hands tightly cuffed, and his face a mix of defiance and unease. Though he tried to maintain an air of arrogance, his eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape route. But with the number of officers and lawyers present, it quickly became clear. There was no way out. The trial began with the prosecutor's opening statement. The prosecutor rose, their voice clear and commanding. "Your Honor, today we present the case of Ethan, a man who operated an illegal drug network amid a quiet neighborhood. With irrefutable evidence, including videos, photographs, and witness testimonies, we will demonstrate that the defendant not only violated the law, but also instilled fear and danger in his community." As the prosecutor spoke, they displayed video footage on the courtroom screen. The audience, including the judge, jury, and onlookers, watched intently as images of Ethan's basement lab appeared. Plastic bags filled with drugs, manufacturing equipment, and a ledger containing detailed transaction records. Ethan, seated at the defendant's table, visibly shifted in discomfort. He glanced around nervously, his bravado fading as the evidence mounted against him. But he tried to interrupt, raising his voice. "I've been set up. This isn't mine. You can't prove anything." The prosecutor, unfazed, continued. "We have more evidence to present. Testimonies from witnesses will reveal the truth about the defendant's violent and threatening behavior toward the community." Anna, the neighbor who had observed and recorded many of Ethan's actions, was called to the stand. She approached with confidence, her gaze steady despite the weight of the room's attention. Standing before the court, Anna recounted her experiences. "For months, I witnessed Ethan repeatedly threatening and harassing those around him, particularly Jordan. I saw him bring a gun to Jordan's house, throw trash at him, and hurl racist insults." She paused, her voice resolute as she continued. "I also recorded a video of Ethan brandishing a gun at Jordan, which I provided to the police. With everything he's done, no one in our neighborhood could feel safe while he remained free." The courtroom fell silent. Anna's words resonated deeply, a powerful indictment of Ethan's actions. The defense attorney attempted to counter. "Your Honor, my client is simply a misunderstood man. These pieces of evidence do not definitively prove that he orchestrated a criminal operation." But the prosecutor swiftly rebutted, "The evidence is indisputable. Not only do we have video footage from the basement, but we also possess detailed transaction logs and testimonies from delivery workers who directly interacted with the defendant." Jordan, the driving force behind the investigation, was then called to testify. He stood at the witness stand, his voice calm but authoritative. "I am Jordan, the leader of the Narcotics Task Force. My team and I have been monitoring Ethan's activities for months. The evidence we gathered, from video footage of his basement to transaction records, all points to Ethan as the primary orchestrator of this drug network. Moreover, he used violence and intimidation to protect his operation." Jordan's gaze bore into Ethan as he continued. "Ethan is not a victim. He is the mastermind, and he must be held accountable." After hearing the evidence and testimonies, the judge delivered the verdict. Having reviewed the evidence and witness statements, this court finds the defendant, Ethan, guilty of illegal drug trafficking, unlawful possession of firearms, and violent threats. The defendant is sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Ethan leapt to his feet, shouting, "No! I've been framed! This isn't my fault!" But his outburst was ignored, his protests lost in the weight of the courtroom's decision. No one in the room showed sympathy for him. As Ethan was escorted out, his eyes burned with hatred. He turned back to glare at Jordan and yelled, "You think this is over? I'll come back. I'll make you all pay." Jordan stood firm, his expression unchanging as he watched Ethan being led away. He knew that Ethan's words were hollow now, powerless in the face of justice. Outside the courthouse, Anna and several neighbors gathered to observe the conclusion. "Finally, he's facing justice," Anna said with a sense of relief. She turned to Jordan, her voice filled with admiration. "Jordan, you accomplished what none of us dared to dream possible." Jordan offered a small smile and replied, "It wasn't just me. This was a collective effort. We proved that justice prevails when people come together, even if it takes time." Anna nodded, her expression full of gratitude. As the courthouse doors closed, the light of justice seemed to spread across the community. Jordan stood for a moment, gazing up at the clear blue sky. Relief washed over him, but so did resolve. He knew that this victory was just one of many battles, yet exposing Ethan's crimes was proof that the truth could never be hidden forever. "Justice always finds its way," Jordan murmured before walking away, ready for the next mission. After the historic trial, Jordan's name became a beacon of hope not only within the police department, but across the community. He was celebrated not just as a hero who dismantled a dangerous drug network, but as a symbol of courage, justice, and relentless determination. At the police department, Jordan received a grand ceremony in his honor. The event was held in the department's main hall, attended by the entire team and senior leadership, all gathered to acknowledge Jordan's outstanding contributions. As he walked in, applause erupted, filling the room with a sense of unity and celebration. His colleagues stood and cheered, welcoming him as a true hero. Jordan's captain, a seasoned officer with a commanding yet warm presence, stepped up to the podium to speak. Jordan. Through your bravery, intelligence, and exceptional leadership, we not only dismantled a dangerous criminal network, but also restored peace to the community. What you've accomplished is more than just fulfilling a duty. It is a testament to the spirit of responsibility and dedication of a true officer. He handed Jordan a Medal of Honor, along with a certificate acknowledging his tremendous achievements. The hall roared with applause. A younger colleague approached Jordan, patting him on the shoulder. "You're not just our leader, you're an inspiration to all of us." Jordan humbly bowed his head in gratitude, responding, "This victory is not mine alone. It belongs to the entire team and the community. I simply did my part, but together we made this happen." When Jordan returned to his neighborhood, he was met with an unexpected celebration. As his car pulled into the driveway, a crowd of neighbors stood waiting. Anna and a few others led the group, holding a large banner that read, "Thank you, Jordan, the hero of our neighborhood." Cheers rang out as Jordan stepped out of his car. An elderly woman approached him, holding a bouquet of fresh flowers. Her voice trembled with emotion. "Thank you, Jordan. Because of you, this neighborhood is so much safer. I can't imagine what could have happened without you." Anna stepped forward, carrying a homemade cake. Her bright smile reflected the gratitude of the group. "We heard about your commendation today, but this is how the neighborhood wants to thank you for everything you've done for us." Jordan smiled warmly, accepting the cake and the flowers. He replied, "I'm deeply touched, but what matters most is the unity of everyone here. Without your support and courage, this success wouldn't have been possible." Neighbors began sharing stories about the positive changes in the community since Jordan moved in. A middle-aged man spoke up. "I used to feel uneasy going out at night, but now, thanks to you, I know my family is safe." A young woman added, "Jordan isn't just a police officer. He's an amazing neighbor. He's always there to listen and help whenever we need him." The heartfelt gratitude and stories of transformation moved Jordan deeply. As he looked around, he saw the change in everyone's eyes. No longer fear or worry, but trust and hope. That evening, after everyone had returned to their homes, Jordan sat alone in his office. On the desk lay the Medal of Honor and the certificate he had received earlier. He picked them up, observing them in the soft light of the room. These were not just awards for his efforts, but symbols of motivation to continue his journey for justice. Jordan opened his laptop and sent a brief message to his team. "Thank you all for standing by me to complete this mission. We did it together, and I'm proud to work alongside each of you." Leaning back in his chair, he gazed out the window. The night sky was calm, and within him a sense of fulfillment took root. Jordan's neighborhood had truly transformed. Thanks to his brave actions, the residents had regained their peace. More importantly, they had learned that unity could overcome any challenge. Jordan knew his work wasn't over, but tonight he could rest, knowing he had made a significant impact on his journey to protect justice and bring peace to those around him. Jordan's recognition ceremony was held at the local community center, where residents and colleagues gathered to honor his journey. The hall was modestly decorated but carried an air of dignity, with warm lighting illuminating the stage where Jordan would share his reflections and lessons from his mission. As Jordan stepped onto the stage, the entire room rose in applause. He stood there for a moment, scanning the audience. Colleagues, neighbors, and even children he had protected with unwavering determination. Taking a deep breath, he began speaking in a steady and resolute voice. "Today, I stand here not to claim this honor for myself, but to share it with all of you, those who stood by me in the fight for justice. This success is not mine alone, but ours. a victory for a community united in the pursuit of truth. The room grew silent in reverence as Jordan continued. These past weeks have shown me something invaluable. Justice isn't just the duty of the police or a few individuals. It is the collective responsibility of us all. When we stand together and refuse to turn away from injustice, we can change anything. His gaze landed on Anna, seated in the front row. Anna is proof of that. She's not a police officer, but her courage and vigilance gave us the critical evidence needed to bring a criminal to justice. I want to thank her and everyone who refused to stay silent. Anna lowered her head slightly, tears brimming in her eyes as she was acknowledged in such a profound moment. Returning to his message, Jordan's voice took on a firm yet hopeful tone. But the greatest lesson I want to share today is this. We cannot judge people by their appearance or the color of their skin. Prejudice blinds us to the truth and allows injustices to persist. Justice does not discriminate by race, class, or any other factor. Justice is the truth, and it will always prevail. The room erupted in applause, affirming Jordan's powerful message. After the speech, Jordan stepped off the stage to prolonged cheers. Anna approached him, holding a small notebook filled with her reflections on the events. She beamed at Jordan. "You're not just a hero from this mission. You've restored our faith in justice." Jordan smiled modestly, replying, "It's because of people like you, Anna, that we can make a difference. Together, we've brought about this change, and I believe it will continue." In the following days, Jordan and Anna collaborated on community projects. They organized workshops at the community center, where Jordan shared his experiences and Anna encouraged others to stand against injustice. Initiatives to support children in the area were launched, aiming to educate them about kindness, respect, and the value of justice. Jordan became a role model not only for his colleagues but also for the community. Children in the neighborhood often visited the center to hear Jordan's stories of his missions, inspiring dreams of becoming protectors of justice like him. One weekend, Jordan and Anna stood watching the neighborhood from a newly renovated playground. Children laughed and played, adults chatted with smiles, and everything felt vibrant and alive. Anna turned to Jordan, saying, "Looking at this, I feel like we've done something extraordinary. This isn't just a neighborhood anymore. It's a true community." Jordan nodded, his gaze soft as he looked at the scene. "Not something extraordinary, Anna. This is everything. We've created a place where people feel safe, respected, and connected. That is true justice." That night, Jordan returned home. He sat at his desk, looking at the certificates and medals carefully arranged on the wall. Yet, what he cherished most was the joy and hope he had helped bring to the community he served. Jordan opened a journal and wrote, "Justice is not the end. It is the beginning of a better community. When we stand for truth, we not only change the present, but also build a brighter future." Closing the journal, he smiled softly. The future would undoubtedly bring more challenges, but he knew he wouldn't face them alone. He had a community, a team, and an unwavering belief in justice. Jordan stepped onto his balcony, gazing at the starlit sky. A sense of peace washed over him, and that night, he knew he had done the right thing. And so ends the powerful journey of Jordan, a man who not only brought a dangerous criminal to justice, but inspired a community with his courage and determination. If you were in Jordan's shoes, how would you bring positive change to your community? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more meaningful and inspiring stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.